So with Jurassic Park River Adventure closed until November, and the permanent closure of Dinosaur Countdown to Extinction over at Disney imminent. Like I think it's days away from the permanent closure, and then we get sent the Central America land. Which, by the way, let me before I go with the actual thing, I want to talk about this. You want to know my biggest problem with this whole Central America thing? It's not the Indiana Jones or Encanto thing, although I do think that there is too much IP dependence that's permanently going to damage the park in the long run. The reason why I don't like it is because where's the animals? You want to celebrate the whole thing of Central America, but you're at basically a place that celebrates and showcases wildlife. How about you have a few exhibits that feature animals from Central America? It wouldn't like I'd be more at peace with it if we. And again, someone's going to be snarky, be like, "Well, they can't get animals from Pandora." Yeah, Pandora is kind of a nice placeholder for the beastly kingdom we didn't get. Here, you're talking about Central America. How about you also showcase the animals that come and the wildlife and why we should care about nature in Central America? I don't know. I don't know where to put that, so I just had that. That's been in my head for a while. So, in honor of the lack of dinosaurs we're having for a bit, I thought it'd be kind of fun to revamp this list I had of my 10 favorite dinosaurs, because the first list I had I didn't really like. I really like looking back on it. I really didn't have it was more I didn't think it through, and also trying to think of just 10 dinosaurs to really like is kind of a hard subject in of itself. So I decided to really sit down and talk about my 10 favorite dinosaurs. My number one still has not changed. And who knows, maybe I'll come back to this list and rethink this all over again. So let's kind of go through my 10 favorite dinosaurs, my top 10 favorite dinosaurs. And yeah, if you think a dinosaur should be higher or lower on this list, trust me, there's thousands, guys. Doesn't mean I don't like a dinosaur less. It just means this is my personal favorite, and you guys can let me know in the comments below what you guys think of it. Anyway, so starting off at number 10, we have Kentrosaurus, probably my favorite stegosaurid. Kentrosaurus is such a bizarre-looking dinosaur. Mostly, Kentrosaurus is Kentrosaurus is one of the smaller of the stegosaurids, but I love the body design of them. They have, of course, the plates along the back, but then it becomes spikes all the way down to the tail, and also two large spikes jutting out of each side. So trying to eat this thing was nearly impossible for a lot of carnivores. This was basically a dinosaur that really, and I do mean really, had a serious problem. Serious problem if it ran into a forest and got stuck. But if you were like a big predator going after Kentrosaurus, you were going to have a hard time trying to get at this thing. Anyway, so there you go. Next up at number 9, Therizinosaurus. Therizinosaurus is probably one of the most unique dinosaurs I have ever seen in my life. It's a walking theropod-sized dinosaur with these massive 3-foot-long claws that could just either it's still up in the air if these were used for defense, or just scraping across the ground and kicking up food, helping it get food or reach up for branches to eat. It's still up for air. I would believe that those claws could be used for defense. But Therizinosaurus was imagine a cassowary the size of a T-Rex and probably has the same amount of temperament. Therizinosaurus is such a cool herbivore. It's just a bizarre creature, and really gives that whole thing of dinosaurs. This is why a lot of people see dinosaurs as actual monsters, and how people kind of recognize them. So there you go. And number 8, Carcharodontosaurus. Carcharodontosaurus, first off, the name is just fun to say. Carcharodontosaurus is a very underrated carnivore or theropod in general when you talk about dinosaurs. People always talk about the T-Rex or the Giganotosaurus or Spinosaurus. Carcharodontosaurus was one of the largest carnivores in existence. It was a massive predator. It was also the thing that existed at the same time as Spinosaurus. Now, do I think Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus probably picked fights with each other? It probably did happen, but not as regular as you think, because there was this thing called niche partitioning, which is basically Carcharodontosaurus probably fed on the sauropods and herbivores on land, and Spinosaurus fed on fish. It was a primarily fish eater. Now, that's not to say they probably did get into fights, and God knows I'd love to have seen that. But yeah, Carcharodontosaurus, I think, is a really cool predator. A massive, it also is the founder of the Carcharodontids, because of the shark tooth lizards. That's basically what its name is the shark tooth dinosaur, or shark tooth lizard. Yeah. So moving on to our next one, and that is Eutyrannus. So Eutyrannus is a very early proto-version, I guess you could say, of the Tyrannosaurids. It's one of the oldest fossils out there. And what makes Eutyrannus so interesting is because Eutyrannus is basically, we know it had like feathers or proto-fur around its body. It was in very cold climates. It existed in very cold climates, and it wasn't the biggest predator. It wasn't a giant predator, but it probably had the speed to back up whatever it was hunting. And like most tyrannosaurids, it was very robust and probably take a beating. So Eutyrannus is always a cool Eutyrannus is a really cool dinosaur, because again, it was the forerunner for a lot of tyrannosaurids. So that's why I think I really enjoy that dinosaur. And also, again, it's a whole fur cover, like feathered dinosaur or proto fur dinosaur, living in the harsh Arctic. How cool is that? Next up, Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus was just a walking tank. That's really the best way to describe Ankylosaurus. What we know from fossils is that what we know genuinely from fossil records is that we find no damage of teeth marks or claw marks on a ankylosaur, like wounds or any. There may be some scratches here and there on Ankylosaurus armor, but we don't see any wounds that would be fatal. But we see a lot of like tyrannosaurs with like broken legs, exactly where the club tail would be. So this thing was just a walking tank that would just literally break ankles of anything that tried to come near it. It probably also had really poor eyesight, so it was probably like a rhinoceros, where if you just came within smacking distance, it's gonna smack you. And here's a fun thing. It's now been believed that we now have studied the larynx of Ankylosaurus, and now apparently it didn't make like what we thought it would be, is like these deep guttural kind of grunts and whatnot. No, it's probably sounded like sparrows and blue jays. It tweeted. It probably tweeted and made a lot of like small bird sounds. So that's a little unsettling, right? That's just very, very unsettling. Something that big just made all these sweet. It's like that scene in Kong Skull Island where like, yeah, that's not a bird. It's a big fucking it's a big fucking dinosaur. Anyway, next up, Allosaurus. Yes, I know we're going through some basic answers, but Allosaurus is a really cool dinosaur. It's not as big as like Tyrannosaurus or maybe the other major carnivores, but what Allosaurus lacked in size, it made up for being just an absolute beast in its environment. When we go to Hell Creek, which is a place where we find a lot of fossils, a good chunk of them are Allosaurus. It kind of shows of how well, even though despite their size, they weren't the biggest carnivore, but they definitely made up for it in like either pack hunting or speed, as well as they probably had a way to take down the massive sauropods. And keep in mind, Allosaurus was not alone in terms of like other carnivores. You had Torvosaurus, which was a massive hunter. and Ceratosaurus, which are basically like almost like the jackals of that. And we had other, so we don't have Saurophaganax anymore, but competing with Torvosaurus and also to an extent Ceratosaurus is a feat of itself. And becoming the apex predator of the Jurassic era is awesome in of itself. Speaking of sauropods, let's talk about Sauroposeidon. Sauroposeidon, its name, first off, is so cool. The earthquake lizard god. This was a massive sauropod that existed at the end of the Cretaceous era and is just so cool. This dinosaur was a massive creature. Not one of the biggest. I'm not talking like Titanosaurus or Argentinosaurus, but it was a dinosaur that literally filled up a lot of space in what would be Texas. Really cool dinosaur. And again, I think the name is really just kind of like a chef's kiss on the top. Following that, Carnotaurus. Carnotaurus, I think the reason why I think Carnotaurus, because again, for the meat-eating bull, how cool of a name is that? But for me, Carnotaurus is definitely, I think that a lot of that love comes from like Disney's dinosaur. And yes, Disney's dinosaur version of Carnotaurus is incredibly inaccurate. I'm not going to lie about that. But like, there's so much just this animal that really actually probably would have hunted human beings and looked like that, like literally a devil lizard, is really cool. I also really do like that, it had a special ability where its muscles would basically contract and become like a shooting rocket, like it gained speed. But the difference is it could only go in one straight line. So if it tried to turn, it would immediately trip on itself. So somewhere in history, there was like a Carnotaurus chasing down prey and is like, I got you now. And then the dinosaur just jukes him and he's like, oh my God, no. And just immediately starts falling on his ass. So, yeah. Anyway, so let's move on now to number 2. And number 2 is Suchomimus. Suchomimus, I really do love a lot of the Spinosaurid family. Irritator, Spinosaurus, Baryonyx. They're all really cool because they look so alien. It's like a upright crocodile. And they look very unique, and they're really cool. But Suchomimus is a unique one because Suchomimus wasn't like the others, like Irritator or Spinosaurus or Baryonyx, which primarily look like they fed on fish. Suchomimus had the build to be more of a terrestrial predator. So a nearly 30-foot long dinosaur coming at you like a freight train is going to terrify you. Like a giant crocodile, like imagine the crocodile from Lake Placid if it could stand up and run. Just imagine that, right? Is that not terrifying? Anyway, so at number 1, it has not changed. It has been my favorite dinosaur since childhood. I absolutely adore this dinosaur, and I know someone's going to say it's a basic bitch answer, but I don't care. It's my favorite dinosaur, and that is Triceratops. Triceratops, again, it's one of the most basic answers. It's almost like saying T-Rex is your favorite dinosaur. But why is Triceratops my favorite dinosaur? Triceratops is such an interesting dinosaur, and it's sad too, because every time we learn something new, I'm like, oh, he was dumb. And yeah, we know, thanks to research into the Triceratops brain cavity, is that Triceratops was a fucking idiot, and also had probably really bad vision. But I think that kind of adds to it, though, right? That this almost 10-ton mountain of fuck you energy was walking around the Cretaceous era with horns out and ready to just throw hands with anything it sees, especially T-Rex. And I think that's why I like it so much, is because, everyone loves T-Rex, but like, it's so cool to see a dinosaur that even T-Rex would be like, I'm going to wait till nightfall when you're asleep and then, kill you then. And I do enjoy I do think it's kind of sad, though, that we now there's a theory going around of how T-Rex killed Triceratops was grab it by the frill, hold it down by the with its foot, and then pop its head off like a soda pop can or a soda pop bottle. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of disheartening. But regardless, I think a dinosaur that can go toe to toe and even like one shot kill the king of the dinosaurs is cool in my book. Not only that, I think the other reason why I love Triceratops is because it just looks like a big dependable guy. You know, like he just looks like like if you could make that you could domesticate that dinosaur and make it into like a workhorse or some shit like that. Anyway, so there you go, guys. Those are my 10 favorite dinosaurs. You guys tell me in the comments below, what are your 10 favorite dinosaurs? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope y'all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.